1 year ago yesterday, Pakistan convened the body responsible for decisions about nuclear weapons, not as a drill, as a response to an active military conflict in India or with India. North Korea troops have marched in Moscow Victory Parade for the first time in history. Now, what does that image look like for global alliances? And Hezbollah just broke the ceasefire with 26 attacks inside Israel. Stay with me as we unpack this. Let's do a quick time travel to the past. April 22nd, 2025, a terrorist attack killed 26 civilians, mostly Hindu tourists in Palagam in Indian-administered Kashmir. India blamed Pakistan without presenting any public evidence. Pakistan denied involvement on the night of the May 6th. India launched Operation Sindoor, missiles and drone strikes on 9 sites inside Pakistan and Pakistani-administered Kashmir, including the alleged headquarters of Lakshore, Taiba and Jaish al-Mohammed, 2 U.S. designated terrorist organizations. Pakistan called it an unprovoked act of war and promised strong response. What followed was 4 days that the world nuclear security experts are still analyzing. Pakistan Air Force intercepted Indian aircraft. Both countries struck each other at bases. Pakistan launched Operation Bunyan-un-Marsus, hitting about 3 air bases in India. Airports were shut down across both countries. Stock markets collapsed. More than 8,000 Twitter accounts were blocked in India. Pakistan airspace closed entirely. And then on May 9th, Pakistan reported it convened its International Command Authority, the body responsible for decisions about nuclear weapons. Pakistan officials later denied a formal meeting took place. And of course, the American intelligence officials said their fears of escalation had already intensified before those reports have emerged. A Pakistani minister publicly warned, "Our 130 missiles are kept for India." Another warned if India cut off water supplies, Pakistan would respond with, quote, both conventional and nuclear weapons. Now, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio worked constant back and forth channels with both governments. A ceasefire was announced around 4:30 Pakistan time on May 10th of 2025. The guns went quiet. Now, here's what it looked like yesterday, exactly 1 year ago. Pakistan is celebrating in the street, concerts in Lahore, military ceremonies in Rawalpindi. The government is calling it Marka al-Haq, the Battle of Truth. India is holding its own victory event. Prime Minister Modi saying Operation Sindoor carved a new benchmark in fighting terrorism. But analysts of the diplomatic and the CSIS are saying something very different this week. They are warning that the conditions driving that conflict has not been resolved. India suspended of the Indus Water Treaty, the agreement that governs water flow to 80% of Pakistan's agricultural land, and 240 million people still in place. Pakistan water supply or storage capacity is roughly 30 days. India is up to 220 days. The treaty suspension is being described as a potential trigger for the next crisis. Now, the diplomats wrote this week, the next India-Pakistan crisis will be shaped by compressed timelines, louder domestic pressure, weaker external constraints, and a growing belief of both sides that their escalations can be controlled. Now, the term here is that the belief that the escalation can be controlled between 2 nuclear powers, it's not a safety net. I think it's a miscalculation waiting to happen. Subscribe now if you haven't. Share this episode. The story deserves more attention than it's getting on the public news. Now back to it. On May 9th, Russia had its own annual Victory Day parade in Red Square. Security was tight and the U.S. brokered 3-day Ukraine ceasefire, eased fears of drone disruptions. By the image defined, the parade was North Korea soldiers marching in formation through Red Square for the first time in history, standing alongside Russian forces on the most symbolically significant military day in Russian calendar. China, India, Brazil, and several African heads of the state attended. Western nations were absent. Now, the image is not just symbolic. It is documented, confirmed, and realignment of global military alliances in a single photograph. Now, a country that's under UN sanctions of nuclear weapons development marching beside a nuclear power at war in the capital, boycotted by Western world. Kim Jong-un just also announced this week, as we mentioned, North Korea will deploy new long-range artillery capable of striking South Korea capital's region this year and commission its first naval destroyer within weeks. The world military order is being redrawn and is happening in plain sight, guys. And on May 8th, despite a ceasefire agreement, Hezbollah claimed responsibilities for 26 separate attacks, including 2 strikes inside Israel, the first cross-border strike since the truce had been declared mid-April. 1 Israeli reservist was severely injured. Lebanon death toll from Israel airstrikes since March 2nd has now risen to 2,795. The ceasefire is visibly fracturing. The story is still developing. Somewhere in Lahore, yesterday, there's a concert, lights, music, crowd celebrating what Pakistan is calling its finest military hour. A year ago, in those same streets, people were watching the sky full of missiles. Now you need to think about the 240 million people downstream of suspended water treaty, the farmers in Pakistan whose entire agriculture system depends on water flow that India now controls as a geopolitical lever. Share this episode, drop a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. I leave you all in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Until our next episode.